Before we get started, dear listeners, I just want to apologize. I've got a bit of a head cold, so forgive me, and on with the show. Today, I'm serving up a morbid morsel, a bite-sized curiosity plucked from the shadowy corners of history. Short, strange, and just unsettling enough to stick in your teeth. The villagers only saw him from a distance. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if time bent around him. Cloaked in black, gloved, hat pulled low, and that mask, that beak-like nose, jutting from his face like the skull of a crow, eyes hidden behind glass. Children hid behind shutters. Mothers crossed themselves. Even the dying tried to turn away. Because when the beaked man came, it meant one thing. Death had already arrived. He carried no comfort, only a staff to prod the infected, only pockets full of herbs and vinegar. And behind that mask, no smile, no expression, just the cold calculation of a man who had seen too many corpses and knew more were coming. But the story behind the costume is stranger still, because that eerie beak wasn't just for show. It was science, or at least their version of it. The Plague Doctor costume, now a Halloween staple and a symbol of medieval horror, was originally designed to protect. Its origins trace back to the 17th century, particularly during outbreaks of the bubonic plague in Europe. While plague doctors existed as early as the 1300s, the iconic bird-like outfit didn't emerge until much later. The credit usually goes to a French physician named Charles Delorme, who designed the suit in 1619 during an outbreak in Paris. Here's what it consisted of. A long, waxed overcoat, meant to protect the body from, quote, miasmas, unquote, aka the bad air thought to carry disease. Leather gloves, boots, and a wide-brimmed hat, symbolizing the medical profession. A wooden cane, used to examine patients without touching them. And, of course, the beaked mask. That mask is what made the Plague Doctor legendary. The long curved beak wasn't just to terrify peasants. It was packed with aromatic herbs, flowers, camphor, or vinegar-soaked sponges. The belief was that pleasant smells could filter out the poisonous air, keeping the doctor safe from infection. Inside the mask were small glass domes over the eyes, early crude protection lenses. The beak created a sort of primitive respirator, designed with a twisted blend of logic and superstition. And, in some ways, it worked. Not because it actually filtered plague particles. It didn't. But because it kept the doctor physically distant fully covered, and less likely to come into contact with the infected. In an accidental way, the costume did offer a layer of protection, though not for the reasons they believed. But function aside, the outfit became a symbol of dread. Doctors in these suits walked through cities already decimated by plague. By the time they arrived, it was often too late for medicine. Their job? To record the dead, diagnose the sick, and sometimes just to count the bodies. They didn't bring hope. They brought reality. In some towns, seeing a plague doctor enter your home was a death sentence. Their black robes trailed behind them like funeral cloth. The mask turned them faceless and almost inhuman. They were less healers and more harbingers. And most weren't even trained physicians. During major outbreaks, cities would hire anyone willing to take the risk. Some were barbers, others were monks, still more were just desperate or curious. The costume gave them authority, but not necessarily skill. Over time, the image of the beaked doctor took on mythic qualities. Some believed they were cursed. Others thought they were thieves, sneaking into houses to rob the dead. And in art, they became surreal figures, grotesque silhouettes against collapsing cities. The Plague Doctor costume sits at the crossroads of medicine, myth, and mortality. It was meant to protect, but it became a symbol of fear. A practical uniform, twisted by time into something almost supernatural. Today, the mask still lingers in festivals, costumes, even tattoos, because there's something about that faceless beak and black robe that chills us, even now. It reminds us that no matter how far we've come, we're only ever one outbreak away from dusting off old masks and hoping they still work. I thought the script was ready for recording, but I felt something was missing. Join me for a few more minutes as we reach into the past and bring this costume into the modern day. The image of the Plague Doctor has long outlived the pandemics it was born from. In modern culture, the beaked mask has taken on a second life, not as a symbol of healing, but as a visual shorthand for dread. It seemingly appears everywhere now, in horror films, video games, heavy metal album art, and store aisles during the Halloween season. But why does it haunt us so effectively? I believe it's because the imagery presents us with a dichotomy. The outfit is somehow unfamiliar and familiar, all at once. A human figure, but faceless, cloaked in black, unblinking behind glass. It invokes our most primal fears: disease, death, and isolation. You'll find plague doctors in video games like Assassin's Creed and Bloodborne, where they often appear as sinister NPCs or monstrous healers. In the TV show Doctor Who, a plague doctor mask is used to symbolize a psychic virus. and in horror films and indie shorts, the mask often shows up in dream sequences, cult rituals, or paranormal contexts. Even in fashion and festival scenes, especially in places like Venice, the Plague Doctor has become part of masquerade culture, stripped of its original horror, but retaining that strange, theatrical mystique. But not all modern depictions are playful. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the Plague Doctor re-emerged in protest art, memes, and viral videos, reminding us that we're not as far from the past as we like to think. What was once a tool of last resort has become a symbol of how we cope with death, by giving it a face, one we can fear, mock, and occasionally wear. Because sometimes history doesn't just repeat. It walks beside us, masked, silent, and all too familiar. And that, dear listeners, wraps up this morbid morsel. I'm your host, Thomas Gloom, and as you digest this nasty little treat, I know your hunger will once again grow, and when it does, I'll be back with more history for you to sink your teeth into. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and consider sharing it with a friend. And to stay up to date with the morbid history happenings, you can follow us on Instagram at Morbid History Pod. I'm also on TikTok. Be on the lookout for the next full-length episode of Morbid History in 2 weeks' time. Until then, cover your mouth when you cough, wash your hands, and stay curious.